I switched to Linux, should you switch too? Today's video I wanted to talk about the reasons why I switched to Linux and also should you switch as well. Linux hit about 10% user base according to a YouTuber by the name of Zach Shutt. He made a YouTube fairly recently about a website that would track what operating system users used when going to their website, and it was close to about 10%. I don't know if it was, how accurate it is, because a lot of times people may use VPNs or other ways to mask their either their operating system or maybe their identity. So he said that they were saying it was roughly about 10%, which is a massive increase since when I started using Linux about 8 months ago. And also, it's been a massive increase since I originally dabbled in Linux back in 2021. So let's look at some of other numbers that is really intriguing. The Steam Deck. I think everyone knows what that is. I can't remember the exact year it came out, but it sold roughly 5 to 6 million copies, and the Steam Deck runs a version of Linux, which I think is awesome because the more accessible Linux is, I mean, it's already a free operating system, but the more accessible it can get into people's hands when it comes to games and software development, I think the better. It'll have a higher adoption. I think it's adoption rate. And also the Steam Machine. These numbers were a little bit harder to find, but it sounds like they are selling about 12 to 15,000 units a week, which I think is absurd. And I think that's around, I think this was like between $10 and $18 million a week. That is according to a website called Tech Power. So I'm going to dive into the reasons I switched, and a lot of it had to do with just the amount of ads and pop-ups I was constantly getting in Windows, and there always seemed like there was something running in the background. Like I could be sitting just at the desktop, like just fully booted up, about to launch Steam and Discord, and I would have like I think it was like my CPU was running. No, it was the RAM. I think the RAM was at like 8 gigs. I think it was like 8 to 10 gigs just sitting idle. It was being used, which I think is just crazy, especially the price of how much RAM costs these days. I think I had like 16 gigs at the time, so that was one of the big reasons. And I switched to Linux about 6 to 8 months ago, and I've been using it on and off since 2021. And what I found is if there's a piece of software that you don't know will work on Linux, Reddit, bro. Like go to Reddit, and you will find out very quickly if that works or not. And if it doesn't, I found a great alternatives if there are complications with the certain software that you're looking to run. Like for example, the first software that I had issues with is called Maker MKV, I think is what it's called. It's for ripping not CDs, DVDs. Ripping DVDs and Blu-rays and trying to put it into like a Plex server or a Jellyfin server. It technically works on Linux, but I was having a lot of issues with it just not recognizing my drive, like my CD drive and stuff like that. So it was really a pain in the butt, and it wasn't working the way I think it should have. So a lot of times I would go back to Windows because of little software glitches. But OBS works. I'm using Audacity right now to record this. That works on Linux. I'm using Linux right now, Bazite. Out of all the distros that I've tried, I really like Bazite because it pretty much it sets everything up for you. You just install it. Steam is already installed. I did have to go get OBS, and I did have to go get Audacity, but pretty much everything is already installed for you, and it's pretty much bulletproof in the sense that you can't break it by going into the code, like the command prompt on Windows. I know Windows, it's very buggy, but people are used to it. So I find that this is very comparable in the sense that you just boot it up and go. So that is definitely one option out there. So I've always been able to find software alternatives. For example, I used to use, and I think it was Adobe Elements back in the day when I used to make YouTube videos, and that Adobe is weird. I've heard people are able to get it working through Proton or Bottles, and I have not attempted. I just was like, screw it, I'll do something else. Adobe is a little finicky. I think DaVinci Resolve is another one that's kind of finicky. So I just use CapCut. That's the one I've used so far. And the let's see. Oh right, when I was trying to cancel Spotify, I was switching to going back to using my old iPod, and Windows has iTunes, and I could not get I don't even think there's an app for iTunes on Linux, so that was kind of a bummer. But what I did was I completely just transferred all the music I had when I was on Windows onto my iPod and also to an external hard drive, and I just completely made the switch to Linux. I do have a backup hard drive, another SSD in my PC with Windows, just in case if I have to boot in. But that is just like last resort. So that's pretty much the only things the software that I struggled with was that iTunes didn't work on Linux, and the Maker MKV app was I was really struggling with. I would say I was very happy that Bamboo Labs worked though, because I do some 3D printing, and it seems like there's a native app either through GitHub or you can get it through their website as an app image. Works perfectly fine. Um, but I would say some of the other things that really got under my skin with Windows is a lot of their updates were just breaking their this really stupid things were breaking in their updates. Their updates would take 30 minutes, hours at a time. A lot of times the updates would happen while you were doing something, either while you were editing a video or writing or playing a game. And all their updates require you to reboot, and sometimes the rebooting process you might get stuck. And what's really neat about Linux is I've been running Bazite for I think I've been on Bazite for about a month. I definitely did distro hopping because I did Mint, Ubuntu, Fedora. I'm trying to think. Kashi. That was the other one. So I've been on Bazite for about a month, and I haven't had any updates or any updates that I had to do. You can choose to do the updates, or you can completely leave them out. And a lot of times when you do the updates, they don't require you to reboot. I still would recommend it though. But yeah, the constant bombardment of Game Pass, the Microsoft, what's it called? Office 365, 365. With that subscription, in order to use PowerPoint, Excel, and Word. And honestly, all of those, there are free alternatives on Linux. Libre Office, I think is what it's called. I use that a lot for typing up scripts or scripts. Yeah, scripts. Um, and also just I enjoy doing some creative writing, so I use that a lot as well. Let's see, the Office 365, the Game Pass prices also are getting hiked up, so they're always promoting that. And I can't stand just having all these ads pop up every single time I boot into Windows when I just wanted to go play a game on Steam. And I would say the fact that I think the one thing that would probably keep me on Windows right now is games that have anti cheat. For example, like Call of Duty and Battlefield, you can't play those games on Linux. At least the latest ones. Some of the older ones you can because of their anti cheats. Those don't work because of a kernel level anti cheat, but a lot of people, I don't. I'm on the fence about the kernel level anti cheat stuff because I like the concept in the sense that like, oh yeah, it scans your computer for any malicious software at the kernel level. But the issue with that is that sometimes those softwares, like the kernel software, is not being shut off when you don't run the game. Like for example, Valorant, their kernel level anti cheat called Vanguard. A lot of times it's running in the background even when you're not playing the game, which means that it's constantly scanning your computer, and that's a little creepy. And that was a big reason why I don't necessarily like Windows to begin with, is because there's a lot of telemetry, a lot of AI running in the background, and you just don't know where that information is going. Perfect example I would say is I think EA. EA, they have a kernel level anti cheat on Battlefield 6, and I think EA got bought by Saudi Arabia. I think Saudi, yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. And you just don't know where that information is going. Like, I know the mindset of like, oh, if you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't be nervous or scared about privacy issues, but it's still really creepy. And that's what I'm really enjoying about Linux so far. It's the fact that it's all open source. There's no like no tracking that I'm aware of. Um, and for the fact that you don't have to worry about relying on any major company like Microsoft. You can use pretty much any third party open source software that you want. You don't even have to use Steam, really. You could use Lutris. You could use, what's the other one? There's Lutris, there's Bottles. Drawing a blank on the other one, but there's so many other launchers that you could use. You don't have to use Steam. Um, but anyway, I just wanted to see what other people's thoughts were down below, and see if you guys have switched to Linux, or if you're thinking about switching to Linux. And if so, let me know down below. Let me know if you're thinking about it, or if you already have. If you have, I would really like to know what version of Linux you're running, and see if there's anyone else using Bazite as well.